Go ahead and get your cups ready today, y'all, because we're going to be doing a lesson in total rage bait reading, and you're not going to believe what it is. We're going to be reading the one, the only, Jodi Hildebrandt. You are not enough. And we're going to see if we can't crack whatever's in this demented thing right here in today's video. Hello, Sofa Squad, and welcome back to the sofa. Sofa's back there. Roscoe's on it. My name's Paul. I'm in front of it. Today, like you saw, y'all, here we go. We are going to be, this is going to be like a I read it for you so you don't have to read it type thing. We're going to start off with this book. Now, here's the thing. If you have followed me, and this is going back to Chad Daybell, One Foot in the Grave, with that kind of thing, then you will know that most likely my body and psyche will start rejecting this book. Honestly, with this one, page 1, I will start yawning, that kind of thing. So when I do that, that's when it's time to mosey along for the video. Okay, so this might be a multi-part thing because I don't know if I can do this in one reading or whatever, but what I'll do is just like we did with the Chad Daybell thing. If I break it into parts, we'll do a compilation at the end so that they're all together or whatever. We're going to talk about it as we go. This is not supposed to be some serious, like, Amazon thing. This is talking about it, looking at it, dissecting it with what we know about the case and what we know about Jodi, that kind of a thing. Now, what I want to do is, well, first of all, if you do want to follow Roscoe and I outside of here, outside the tubes, we're on the Instagram, the Instagram. It says it on the TV screen right there. Go on, click it. Now, that's out of the way. Let's talk about the book itself. So, it is called, like I said, You Are Not Enough. Enoughness is the lie that keeps you from the truth of who you are. All these little keywords, right? Jodi Hildebrandt, LPC, MS. Again, you are not enough. You are enough. You're not enough. I mean, it's whatever. Connections is on the back right here. It's giving self-published. It's giving One Foot in the Grave by Chad Daybell. It's giving he might have been the, the publisher. Inside, it's big print. I mean, it might not look into your little phone screen or TV screen or whatever, but it is. So it's not huge, and that's good because we don't want to, we don't want to go down the rabbit hole too much, okay? So that's it. So again, what I'm going to do is I'm going to start reading. I'm just kind of talk about it along the way. So again, the first page is You Are Not Enough by Jodi Hildebrandt. Then it goes into author's note. Let's read the author's note. Names and identifying details have been changed in some circumstances to protect the identity and privacy of those mentioned. The information in this book is for informational purposes. It is not presented as, nor is it intended to be a substitute for professional mental health counseling. Now, she should literally have that tattooed on her forehead for all these clients that she's bamboozled, right? Then it just goes into little copyright stuff. Edited by Mary Scoresby, cover design by David Jones, first edition. Okay, fancy. Now let's read her dedication. To Pam, Dana, and Stacy. I am fortunate to have an amazing support system of women who I love and am blessed to know and be close to. These women have validated me, been vulnerable with me, spoken truth to me. I truly am grateful for your steady guidance and compassion as I maneuver through this maze of life with you. To the next 50 years, ladies. Well, I hate to tell these ladies this, but the next 50 years might be talking to her through bars. Okay, that one did it age well, now did it, Jodi. Let's get to chapter 1. Okay. Contents. Introduction. The Greatest Lie. Page 1, chapter 1. I mean, my God, this is probably the bio part right here. Introduction, The Greatest Lie. It has 12 chapters, and part 3, Love. It's the tiniest section. Of course it is. Okay, please just hold on. Before we even get started, let's drink up, for God's sakes. And just to give you an idea of what this kind of looks like, because there's like some dialogue and stuff. You see the top here and the dialogue. We're going to do the Star Wars thing. One day in a galaxy far, far away, there were some crazy ladies. So, introduction, The Greatest Lie. The greatest lie that has never been told is this: you are not enough. Many of us have not only heard this lie, we have bowed to it, worshipped it, believed it, and repeated it in thousands of ways. Its deceptive voice has many shades and tones. It can use your fear and pain to make you feel small and less than others. What is wrong with me? My needs are not important. My life is so unfair. They wouldn't care about me if they really knew me. No one understands me. I can't do anything right. Or it can try to mask your fear and pain with pride, puffing you up with a false sense of superiority that tempts you to believe you are better than others. Pause real quick. Right, immediately, first damn paragraph. It's like, take your own advice, Jodi. This is what's interesting about things like this when you read them, is you already know this is going to be an entire book basically gaslighting her own issues onto the general public and whoever bought this book, right? So let's continue. She's going to ask these questions in the light of being superior, having the superiority complex. She knows all about this, I'm sure. She says, why doesn't anyone get it? I am entitled to this. If they would just listen to me, everything would go right. I am the best. I don't need anybody because I can take care of myself. I'll just do it myself so it's done right. You know, these were common phrases coming right out of her mouth. That's why people like her write these books, because they are broken souls that feel like everyone else is broken except for them, right? Okay, let's go. Enoughness is presented with an all or nothing premise. Either you are enough or you are not enough. However, both ends of the spectrum are deviations from this truth. You are not a soul that is measured by being enough or not enough. You are a divine being, a child of God. Somehow, distortion, first damn page, distortion. I mean, can't roll my damn eyes hard enough. And it has an asterisk, a little 2 next to it, so we'll get to that. Somehow distortion has convinced too many of us that our actions equate to our worth and that our value is contingent upon our choices. This one lie of distortion is at its core of what is making God's children sick. Okay, so that's the end of first page. So we've got distortion, we've got gaslighting, we've got God's children are sick. The premise that you see where it's all getting laid out here, okay? This whole thing. Again, but distortion's the first word of the next damn page. Distortion says if you do this or say that or become like this or have that or look like this, then you will have worth and you will be enough. And if you don't, you're not enough. Distortion pummels you back and forth between these two positions until you become spiritually and emotionally numb and disconnected. People begin to behaviorally and emotionally evidence this lie of distortion in the forms of depression, anxiety, addiction, inter and intrapersonal conflicts, communication breakdowns, marital issues, and a slew of other painful outcomes. My God, if I had 10 cents for every word in that thing. I mean, she went to her little 10-cent word bank and just cashed her whole week's paycheck on this one. I mean, my God. You know, she thought she did something with that right there, right? She really thought she did something with that paragraph. She was like, wait till they get to page 2. Page 2 is where they are going to know I'm not to be messed with. You know what I'm saying? Okay, let's keep going. Distortion lies to you and tells you that your choices mean you are either good or bad, right or wrong, lovable or unlovable, worthy or unworthy, stupid or smart, capable or incapable, too fat, too thin, too tall, too short, successful or not successful, and on and on. It is never gratified. Now, I'm going to read it to you like this, but just know that this is right here. See how the pages are? So this side right here we'll read first, and it says truth, I am. Its opposite on the other thing, distortion, says my choices mean I am. That would be the format we do right here. Truth, a child of God. Distortion, enough or not enough. Truth, divine. Distortion, important or unimportant. Truth, a soul. Distortion, worthy or unworthy. Truth, a female or male. Distortion, too feminine or too masculine. Truth, beautiful. Distortion, ugly or beautiful. Truth, loved by God. Distortion, needed or unneeded. Truth, cherished by God. Distortion, seen or unseen. Truth, valued by God. Distortion, valued or unvalued. Truth, known by God. Distortion, special or ordinary. Truth, seen by God. Distortion, appreciated or unappreciated. So, I mean, there's of that. Let's go ahead and recharge this. Do you see it? Do you hear it? Can you feel how slippery the deception is? Persuading you to believe that your choices have the power to change your eternal identity, to make you believe that your gift of choice can alter your eternal status as a child of God. Divinity is your standing in the eternities, and no number of wrong, inappropriate, or poor choices can change your soul's identity. Choices are separate entities from our unalterable divinity. Choices have outcomes to be certain, and we are responsible to repent and clean up the consequences of our choices. Yet those choices do not reflect on the nucleus of our being, our value and worth as divine beings of a loving God. The truth is you are a child of God, period, the end. This is how she's convinced herself that, like, it's okay that she's going to prison for the rest of her life and the things that she did to get there. This is, you're seeing this laid out, right? This is what she's laying in her cell telling herself, looking like, she does when she comes in there. Okay, truth with, okay, so now it goes like this. So see how it's like this right here? It's like a little multiple choice school, kindergarten age workbook. So let's go to number 1. Truth with a capital T means in every experience you are responsible to perceive in the 3 areas. Number 1 is what you think, perceive. 2 is what you feel, emotions. And 3 is what you will do, actions. The next paragraph says these 3 areas are the only areas in your life that you can control. When you choose truth, you're choosing to perceive your experiences in honesty, responsibility, and humility. You are responsible to evaluate for truth in every experience while using these additional indicators. Identify what is, and we list them off. Number 1, measurable, quantifiable. Number 2, factual. Number 3, eternal. Number 4, objective. And number 5, constant. I feel like she would do the hand motions. You know what I'm saying? Maybe not that dramatic, but you get what I'm saying. It would be, somewhere in the room. Okay, so the word truth or true with a lowercase t refers to things that are not factual, like opinions, perspectives, emotions, and things that are changeable. Number 2, distortion is the violator of truth with a capital T. Distortion is you choosing not to perceive your experiences in truth, honesty, responsibility, humility, and choosing instead to perceive them in dishonesty, irresponsibility, and lack of humility. Distortion is the lack of perceiving things that are, we list them off, the same list as before, Lord help us, measurable, quantifiable, factual, eternal, objective, constant. Distortion is truths with a capital T, counterfeit. Distortion is the lie of you are not enough. Every choice you make is between the 2 choices of truth and distortion. I mean, I'm not gonna lie, I'm kind of lost. Now that was like the precursor, so now we get to part 1, connection, where it all started. Oh dear God, I'm gonna need to sip from this. Y'all, I've barely been able to peel myself out of the bed since I have finally been getting a decent night's sleep since I partnered up with Helix, and we're going to talk about it today. So it's been no secret if you've been following me, I've been working out a lot, hitting the gym really hard, and I actually ended up hurting my leg at the gym, or so I thought. So I got to the point where all I could do was sleep on my recliner sofa, but that's the theme of the channel, sofa, so I mean, it's okay, but that's the position I was sleeping, and I never slept that good in it. So then, during the middle of all this, I go to the doctor, and I actually get diagnosed with arthritis in my hips. So as this is going on, Helix reaches out, they want to work with me. Well, I already know because one of my neighbors has their mattress and she swears by it. So when that happened, I was like, ask and ye shall receive. So today we're going to talk about my experience with the bed because I've had it for a minute now. And we're also going to talk about how you can go about getting yours, the whole 9 yards, because it's super easy. Okay, so what is Helix? Who are they? Why are we talking about them? Well, let's go over some just brief facts here. So they're premium mattresses. They're customized to fit your needs. They shipped right to your door. Literally, y'all, I came home, I saw the package on my front door, and I was like, yes, it does not get any easier than this. Now, here's the other thing also, and a lot of the things are out there these days, but this one is so easy. You go online, you take the little quiz, I'll put it on the screen here, and you just fill in some real basic stuff. It literally takes like less than a minute, y'all, and it comes up with, hey, this is the kind of mattress you should have, because we're all different, right? But one of the things that I've really enjoyed about it is it's asking you, are you a side sleeper? Are you a this? Are you a that? Or whatever. I personally toss and turn all night long. Okay, that's just what I do. It's how I fall asleep. And so that's why I need a very unique situation for the bed. But I felt like what it ended up matching me to, which was their midnight collection, it was on point. It's exactly like as it was supposed to be, because that's the part that I felt like, okay, if there's going to be a glitch in this, it's going to be between this test and actually matching me up to the bed, because once it's here and I'm rolling around and I've got this little one bouncing all over the place in the bed too, whatever, it's going to be interesting to see how it worked out. But it's been excellent. Every side that I sleep on feels great. Because here's my thing. When I was younger, I wanted a more firm fit, like firm feel in the bed or whatever. And so now with my hip issues and my leg issues, I was like, I want something firm, but a little bit lighter. So I'm not gonna lie, y'all, I went into this expecting like, Paul, you might end up having to like exchange this out or whatever. And if so, that's okay, because they hook you up in that department too. There's a 100-night sleep trial to test the mattress out. Also, it comes with a 10-year warranty. That's right, 10 years. They offer financing and flexible payment plans. But once I got it, it has this very easy QR code. You scan it, it tells you how to do all the stuff to set it up. Got on the bed, let it do its thing, sat down on it, got it the first few nights of sleep or whatever. I knew instantly. I was like, oh, sold, okay. And also the toughest critic of them all, this little buddy right here. Yeah. He loves it too. So here's the thing. Like I said, I've had it now for, I think, going on like a month probably. 100% I am off having to sleep on the recliner, except for like a nap or something like that, but not like I cannot sleep in my bed physically because of the pain. Literally has gone away. I am absolutely loving it for that. For me, like I said, I got the midnight one. It's the firmness and the little soft thing with it and the extra little cooling thing on it because I'm a little heater. But it's the right amount of firmness and softness mixed in to where I just like sink into it and it feels so amazing. And it has my hips, it like hugs them in such a way that it's not too much, but it also is not too little. With summer coming up, I upgraded to that little cooling cover on it. Y'all, I mean, I cannot tell you. And it comes with the 2 little pillows too that has it. Heaven. Okay, 2 words for you. Heaven. Look, Helix has 20 different unique mattresses. They have an award-winning Luxe and Ultra Premium Elite collection. Helix Plus is a mattress designed for big and tall sleepers. And the Helix Kid mattresses, they're designed for growing bodies and they're endorsed by child sleep and medical experts. Now, y'all, this is another thing that I didn't realize about mattresses and whatnot, but that's fiberglass. So Helix mattresses do not contain fiberglass. I had no idea, right? Can you imagine? So Helix actually owns its own manufacturing facility. It's entirely free from products that contain fiberglass. If you're on TikTok, you might have seen all the stuff about all these lawsuits coming out against different places and things with fiberglass in them. So I was like, yeah, thanks Helix. Now, and the other thing too, y'all, I will reiterate it again, is the literal ease of shopping and getting this mattress, y'all. I am not joking. They keep you updated. You come home, the box is on your porch or whatever your situation is. You unbox it, it's right there. It's just, it doesn't get any easier than that. And my neighbor had told me about that. I mean, she talked about it. She's the one who kind of like gave me the preempt to be charged up for this, right? Because this is several years ago that they did theirs. So again, I was just like, let me see how this goes. Because I was one of those people where I'm like, nope, you gotta go to the store, you gotta go do this the traditional way, you know, but I'm sold on this. It was so easy and so perfect. And also, they're hooking the Sofa Squad up. Remember, you get that 100-night sleep trial, so it's more than 3 months to make sure you like it. I mean, come on. There's that 10-year warranty. They offer finance options and flexible payment plans. So once again, thank you Helix for making this video possible. Now look, if y'all want to go check them out, get your hands in on the discount, well, here's what they're offering us. So look, you can click the link down below or you can go to the website itself. It's helixsleep.com/live-from-my-sofa. You're going to get 20% off plus those free 2 pillows. I mean, come on. Chapter 1, my story. I've been asked countless times, how did you learn this? How did you figure this out? I feel so understood when we talk. How did you learn how to connect? Cannot roll my damn eyes hard enough. I mean, it's the narcissism for me. I mean, y'all, this one right here. Okay, so here she begins. The answers to these questions is that I've had my own journey with heart-wrenching pain, where I was looking for answers to seemingly unanswerable questions. I too have experienced devastation, loss, confusion, grief, anger, apathy, fear, sorrow, and despair. I've been in a relationship where I was not seen or heard. I too was lost and desperate to be healed, longing to stop hurting, find peace, and discover connection. Let me share my story. Y'all buckled up, because just from that right there, again, I'm not trying to make fun of somebody who's gone through these things, but the context of who we're hearing this from literally makes me sick to my stomach. You know what I'm saying? So that there's that. I was born the sixth of 7 children. My father was a military man who flew fighter planes, and my mother was a stay-at-home mom. My parents had very traditional roles for the time period, and neither of my parents were available to be vulnerable about their personal experiences and pain that life inevitably presented to them. The motto in our home growing up was, "You're Hildebrandt, go hard or go home." Cannot roll my eyes enough. You know she was saying that when she was doing these punishments on these kids. Go hard or go home. I mean, I can hear it right now. As a child, I quickly learned how to be a pleaser, a doer, a hard worker, and obedient to a fault. I was always considerate and willing to help, needing little interaction to keep me satisfied. I also learned how to manipulate the attention I received. Right there. That's the most truthful line in here. I also learned how to manipulate the attention I received. I bought my parents' attention with the currency of my obedience, and she probably wanted other people to do it for her, and she was bitter about it when they didn't. I did not know that my misguided obedience was inviting me into a world of no emotion, which then disconnected me from my vulnerability, my real life experiences, and physical and emotional safety. It was no one's fault, really. Rather, the environmental and emotional outcomes of my own choices and the choices of those around me introduced me into a world of dishonesty. I didn't have any other life to compare it to, however, so I was at peace. By the time I was born, my mother had experienced the death of one of my brothers. Her 4-month-old son died from an undiagnosed heart condition. He was there one minute and gone the next. Though many people around her were interested in her grief and pain, next page, she was not willing to disclose the devastation that she felt. That tragedy, along with many other painful experiences in my mother's life, resulted in her choosing a controlled and controlling exterior, which appeared to serve her well. Unfortunately, I was never able to really know her as a woman or mother, and we both missed out on connection. So if this is true, because we don't know how much is Jodi's narcissism speaking up here, you can kind of connect the things of if she had a mother that was cold and disconnected and all this type of stuff, well, I mean, you're seeing the makings for Jodi here. Also, she's probably, like I said, bitter that, you know, and again, this is all based on if this is true, which I'm going to much assure you that a lot of this probably is dramatic. She's probably bitter. Like, I was obedient, you have to be too. That kind of a thing. Yeah, that got me out of my whatever. You're going to go down the same path. Mixed with the religious narcissism. I mean, there it is. So let's keep going. My father was as emotionally shut down as my mother, yet he spent more time with me, teaching me the principles of hard work and survival in a world he distrusted. He had a fearful perspective of people and their motives. He shared those suspicions with me often, saying things like, "No one else will really love you except your family. People cannot be trusted, and we are the only ones here for you." Now, correct me if I'm wrong and we'll find out, but I don't even think her immediate family, kids or whatever, even talk to her anymore. So there's that. Between the two presentations of my parents, I immaturely concluded that my security, worth, and value depended on me being nice. Well, clearly that didn't take, right? Then she goes into a little parentheses here. Don't create waves. Trust only family. Be pleasing. Work hard and then work harder. Be fearful. Don't fail. Don't upset mother. Be helpful. Don't complain even if you're hurt. Be tough. Excel in all you do. Protect and defend the family name no matter what. I lived by these conclusions rigidly. Most of my childhood days I spent alone, playing by myself and roaming my desert playground. I could usually be found interacting with the goats in their pen, milking them and riding them. I liked being alone and felt safe with my animals. I did not have much adult supervision, as my father worked full-time and my mother appeared overwhelmed with the many tasks and duties. Jodi being raised by goats kind of makes sense in a way. You know what I'm saying? Just imagine her out in a little pasture, bullying her way through everything, ramming her way through everything. So I felt empowered to take care of myself, which I did proudly. However, wandering around by myself placed me in harm's way when the 15-year-old neighbor boy decided to SA me throughout the ages of 2 to 5 years old. These experiences encased me in confusion, isolation, and fear. So much so that I conveniently forgot about them until I was in my early 20s. Because of my misplaced obedience and desire to be good, I was silent and never told a soul. As a child, I never spoke about these abuses and all the accompanying lies and manipulations. I simply concluded that I needed to be better, the best, always helpful and kind. I felt a drive to be strictly agreeable and never disappoint or complain. I was locked into the illusion that I'm now bad, and so somehow I can only try to be good, and this is how I'm going to do it. I became the perfect child. Interesting. Okay, let's continue. Unfortunately, the emotional temperature in our home was numb, so no one noticed anything abnormal, though my little world had been introduced to abhorrent, vile, lustful evil. I placed my focus on performance, acquisition, accomplishments, service, and hard work. I felt that I could somehow earn some of my worth back. Because no feelings were allowed to be shared, it was a horrible situation for me. The secrets that I held were locked away because of the emotional backlash I'd received from how both of my parents were raised. So my primitive conclusions were, if I were good enough, obedient enough, hardworking enough, happy enough, I'd be good enough again. And that was my motto for survival. It never panned out, and I was never enough. So again, pause. You see how she's projecting her own issues onto others, trying to say, this is what you need to do because this is what I did. And I'm not trying to knock that because that's how often many of us can learn, but you're just seeing the basis of it. So she has this like entitledness because she lived through A, B, and C, and this is on the premise that this is true. We don't know. And we've seen how her and Jodi operate. So I'm just saying, and this goes for anything she's talking about here, we do not know if this is true, that type of thing. So I just get this sense, it's like, almost like, well, I lived through this and this is what I did, so therefore you need to toughen up and you're going to do blank. You know what I'm saying? Let's continue. Sadly, though I was perfect and living my unbearable motto, I was assaulted again, this time by a boy from a placement program who my parents invited into our home to live with us. He was 16 years old and I was 7 when the abuse began, and it ended when I was 9 years old. All of my fears, beliefs, and conclusions that I had reached about my worthlessness were confirmed. I was bad. Period. This was my invisible backdrop that permeated my life. Every choice I made, every feeling I felt, every precept I had, all went through this portal, God knows, of self-hatred and condemnation. I mean, God knows, portals and distortion. I mean, y'all, I cannot, right? These are references to Chad Daybell as well. This is what I'm making if you don't know what I'm talking about. How does a child of 9 years of age move forward with those filthy images in her mind? How can she, naive to the evils around her, reconcile those events? Easy, she forgets. And that's what I did. That was my brilliant way of living out the remainder of my childhood years. I vowed to not make anyone upset with me, to keep myself safe and unnoticed. I don't even recall exactly when I made that very deliberate decision, yet I can feel the desperation and fear of adhering to that internal pact. I was dominated and ruled by the thoughts of, I have to be perfect. Don't do that. Don't upset anyone. It doesn't matter how you feel. Always be the best. I was enslaved in my own mind, body, and soul, and no one knew it, not even me. If you were to describe me as a child, teen, or young adult, you would have used words such as thoughtful, kind, hardworking, compassionate, obedient, and happy. Yet inside, all I felt was fear. I had to behave in those ways, or the alternative was unleashing the kraken of doom, death, unworthiness, unlovability, and an inescapable knowledge of my badness. I knew I had evil inside me, and I had to keep at least one step ahead of its shadow, or it would overtake me. I mean, my God, you can say that again, girl, damn. This incredible battle waged within me, and so in order to stay stable and sane, I just forgot about everything. Clearly not everything, because God knows, look at the outcome, right? God's grace allowed me to forget so I could manage my young life, though there were signs that I didn't recognize of my armor cracking. The unconscious is fascinating. It can be your protector until you are in a space, emotionally, physically, mentally, and spiritually, to handle what is contained within. So Paul's right there. I mean, again, this is why I wanted to read this line for line, because think about this too. Think about all the dudes that she's like basically victimizing in these families, and like, they have to go through this stuff, and you need to go through, S addiction therapy because you looked at a woman and this, that, and the other. Again, if this is true, what she's saying, and I'm sorry to have to be that way, but it's just she doesn't have a good track record, then you can almost see, oh yeah, she was taking this out on every man, right? And some of that, if this is true, you can understand, like somebody would come out of this situation with anger and fear and resentment towards men for having, if this really was done to her. And again, I'm not sure, drop in the comments if we have any proof that any of this is real, right? Because again, you see how her and Ruby ended up. I mean, come on, right? They were not the most up and up people. A few months after I turned 21, I was preparing to serve a mission for my church, and my facade was questioned for me for the first time in life. I had a history of migraine headaches since my early teens and had been dismissively told they were because I was high-strung. But this time the people working with me were not going to ignore the gravity of the situation. I would be traveling outside the United States, and the powers that be wanted assurance that my medical issue was fully under control. I'd never felt panic strike me as it did when I was questioned and prodded for answers. I'd always been perfect, never questioned about anything. I was not one to draw attention to myself, yet as I perceived it, all eyes were on me and my physical limitations. I was not in control, and to me, this threatened my demise. I remember planning, rehearsing, and scheming about how to avert people's attention away from me. I tried to appear as normal as I could, desperately attempting to minimize what they deemed a significant medical issue. I remember thinking to myself, even though I didn't recall any of my previous assaults yet, if they think my headaches are a significant issue, they don't know what my significant issues are. I was sent to several medical doctors, all of whom attempted to understand why I was experiencing migraines at such a young age. All tests came back normal. Fortunately, or unfortunately, depending on how you choose to look at it, I was told my migraines were the result of emotional issues and that I would not be allowed to go on my mission if I did not uncover the root cause. Very interesting. Very interesting indeed. Let's pause there for a second and talk about that. So here we have this basis, right? So number one, look, the stuff that she's claiming that took place, true, untrue, whatever. If it's true, okay, we can see this. Now, I'm not trying to sit here and say, oh, she went through this, so therefore she gets free pass for what she did. Absolutely not, right? Because clearly, if she did go through this, she did not do something along the way to maybe work on the issues that she brought. You know what I'm saying? Because she turned into the abuser is what I'm getting at. In a very vile manner and almost taking numerous lives. Again, with the mission. Couldn't go in the mission because of stuff. I mean, also remember, look at the interactions that we've seen her in. Like most people watching her interact, even like before all this. I mean, there's just something off. The fact that she was so touted as this major therapist is jaw-dropping to me, right? Because all of this right here, if this is true, I'm like, this is a very bitter human being. These are things that have made her very bitter, and she has taken that out on everyone around her. Obviously, I'm no therapist and none of that. These are just my opinions from the sofa, or well, the folding chair that I'm sitting on, but you know what I mean. Okay, let's go ahead and move on to this next page. I never felt anger well up inside of me as it did in that moment. I thought, how dare they threaten me like this? Tell me that there was something wrong with me and then not allow me to leave on this mission experience, which I dreamt about for years. What was going on? Nothing made sense. Nothing was working as it always had in the past. I was so terrified. I was told that I would need to see a therapist to discover the cause of my migraines. From my perspective, I was being asked to share my protected and hidden world with a complete stranger. My reaction was that old familiar voice of control screaming loudly, "You are not going! You just need to try harder to not get headaches!" However, my history of compliance was deeply ingrained, and I found myself obediently walking into the strange man's office against my silent will. Very dramatic. With a feeling of terror that logic couldn't explain, I went into his office prepared to give him the right answers so I could have clearance for my mission. Little did I expect that he would see right through my obstinance and fear and zero in on my denial and protective posture. 3 hours later, I came out with the burden of memories so heavy upon my shoulders that no words could describe its weight. One of shock, fear, confusion, hopelessness, worthlessness, and panic that, at least in my conscious mind, I'd never experienced before. Never before in my life did I wish for death's door to benevolently open wide and swallow me up. I recall feeling intensity of pain and vividness of thoughts about my childhood that I'd shut out before. While I had spent the first 2.5 hours attempting to manipulate, control, and distract this kind man, he was perceptive and did not allow me to duck and dodge his questions. The last 30 minutes, my invisible shield cracked, and I was left with horrid memories, smells, images, and sounds of interactions with one of my perpetrators. I couldn't escape the truth any longer. I remember looking across the room and shaking with emotions. I had no words, for as tears fell from this compassionate man's eyes, I was struggling to even breathe. I sat in silence as intermittent tears came to my eyes, yet never fell. What was this? What did this mean? Was this real? This experience was a catalyst for my journey to find answers to heal my own wounds. And once I became a therapist, to heal the wounds of others. Again, y'all, well, hold on, we'll get to this in a second. During my journey to healing, I was not the traditional patient. Imagine that. I was curious and somewhat suspicious of the professionals, but yet demanded that they not question her. Again, it's almost like I'm getting a Frankenstein vibe off this. You know what I'm saying? She questioned the professionals that I worked with. I resisted their attempts to diagnose my behavior, knowing intuitively that these labels were not components to my healing. As I participated in their interventions, I was inadvertently enabled to stay sick. Because of my trauma, I was allowed to not be responsible for my thoughts and feelings. I would argue she keeps doing that, but let's continue. And I was permitted, and at times even encouraged, to blame and hold resentments, which I could feel dug a deeper, steeper, inescapable prison for my soul. It's almost like she's describing what was done to her and she's taking a victimization stance on that. But then the stories that we hear from others is she's just turned around and done it. So it's either a matter of victim becomes abuse, the tormentor, or she's just gaslighting the stuff that she's done, right? Or it could be both, right? We'll probably never know. Let's continue. After years of bumbling around and pretending to be in control, I went to God to find answers. I selfishly went for me. I wanted to be released from this literal hell I was in and the constant and now clear memory of the acts that were inflicted on my innocent body and soul. For 20 years, I've been asking heaven for answers on behalf of myself and all those I work with. I've spent tens of thousands of hours asking, studying, listening, and praying to see clearly how to apply principles of truth to human suffering and pain. As I have called upon heaven on behalf of myself and others, instructions have come to me like a slow drip, one true healing principle at a time. I believe I'm still engaged in a process of heavenly instruction, and that won't end unless I'm no longer open to listening and applying its inspired invitations. What I've learned and the language I've been given has not only healed my soul, it has offered healing to thousands of pain-stricken individuals. As I probed for answers to the cause of human suffering, I learned how similar we all are. All of us are searching for one thing: connection. There's that word. Take a sip from your beverage every time you hear the word connection. Let's see, what do we got so far? Connection, distortion, and portal. Those are the three things right here. Now, don't get sick from over drinking. Good Lord. All right, connection. My God, take another. It starts right off. I swear. Connection is the emotional and spiritual knowledge that you are seen, you are heard, you are known, you are loved, and most importantly, that you are divine. The things that they would not offer the children, mind you, but they're going to teach us how to do it. Gotcha. Okay. You are a child of God, and the sacred time I've spent with people who are in vulnerable situations, I've learned spiritual truths that cauterize and heal the human heart and soul. I have found this healing power to be consistent in the lives of everyone who chooses to live principles of truth, regardless of their past or present symptoms. If I had not witnessed these transformations in people's lives and in my life and my own two eyes, I might not have believed it myself. Yet I've facilitated and experienced soul, mind, and body healing with so many thousands of people that I know the principles in this book are the truth. Well, it must be, right? Okay, if you are willing to learn and live the principles I will share with you, you too can experience spiritual and emotional healing. You can be healed from pain, from fear, loneliness, and disconnection from God, yourself, and others. You can conquer the lies that state you are not enough, your needs don't matter, I am better than you, I can do what I want, I am unique, special, different, I am entitled, you're bad and unworthy, or I'm making a little rap song, you're unlovable, and any other thought pattern that seeks to destroy your peace and connection. If you have been abused, traumatized, exploited, ravaged, assaulted, harmed, injured, negatively affected, or confused, all the things they've done to other people, right? If you have been sad, lonely, isolated, disappointed, lost, or grieving, if you have lied, sought to control or manipulate others, or if you have been lied to, controlled by, or manipulated by others, if you have been addicted or affected by someone's addiction, if you are entitled, selfish, depressed, anxious, secretive, or deceptive, If you have acted aggressively or passive aggressively, if you have been told that you are fill in the blank and can't change, if you have been distracted or felt numb in your life, if you have left or been left, or if you think any of these characteristics don't apply to you, these principles of truth are for you. You can heal and connect with God, yourself, and others now. And for the low cost of $9.99, if you just dial this phone number in the next 10 minutes, I'm kidding, it doesn't say that part. But the last part I was joking about, the call 911 or call the phone number. Y'all, they covered everything in that little paragraph, right? Literally, if you have woken up and breathed, you can benefit from her courses, right? Again, mind you, these are all the things they are inflicting on other people. So it's almost like an excellent business model, because it's like you sucker the customer in, you do all these things to them, but yet then you say you have the cure for them for X amount of dollars, and the cycle just keeps going, right? I mean, you gotta hand it to her, you know? Okay, let's keep going. This book is my sincere offering to you. It is a new paradigm of thought that, when learned, practiced, and applied, will heal emotional, mental, and spiritual illness. It heals disconnection, sadness, anxiety, traumas, fears, addictions, entitlements, conflicts, resentments, and individual and relationship pain of all types. Truth heals. This is a promise from God. This book invites all people who are in search of connection to learn that there are spiritual laws and principles that govern it, and that anyone may experience connection by using their agency to choose truth rather than distortion. Y'all, so many, 10 shots on that one paragraph, okay? You are embarking on a transformative journey in which all your perceptions will be examined through the eyes of truth. Using these principles, you will move from disconnection to connection with God, self, and others, and enjoy the fruits of peace, freedom, joy, and love. There's much to be done. Are you ready to be enlightened and empowered? I mean, you can hear her saying that too, right, in her voice? Okay, so chapter 2, what is connection? God almighty, please help me. In chapter 1, I share my story of pain, fear, deception, and confusion, which resulted in me having a lack of connection to God, myself, and others. When I was in search of healing, I did not understand that the lack of connection inside me was the missing link that was keeping me emotionally, mentally, and spiritually ill. Connection was the antidote I was searching for. You can assess your need for connection by asking yourself the following questions. And now prepare yourselves. It's this entire bullet point here, so I'm just going to read off the bullet points, okay? So starting with 1. Do you feel alone, uncared for, unimportant, or not enough? Do you feel unlovable? Do you resist accepting help from others? Are you curious about why things happen to you the way they do? Do you feel misunderstood and or violated? Do you keep secrets and hide from those who you love? Do you question your skills and abilities? Do you feel responsible for fixing things or people when you perceive they are wrong? Do you become angry easily? Are you unwilling to accept responsibility for your choices? Do you hold resentments? Do you think you are perfect or feel the need to be perfect? Do you seek attention from others? Are you often in the middle of others' problems or issues? Do you feel misunderstood or judged? Do you feel you have to be right? Do you feel scared or threatened when you think or find out that you're wrong? Do you beat yourself up when you make mistakes? Do you feel entitled to have your expectations met? Do you feel like you are an exception to the rules? Do you feel like you can't change? Do you wonder why you keep making the same mistakes? Do you feel like you can never live up to others' expectations? I mean, again, they've covered everything possible, right? And again, things that they do not encompass or inhabit within themselves, okay? But they're going to teach us how to do it. Got it. Okay. If you have ever wondered about any of these questions, then you are seeking for connection too. Connection is the central spiritual and emotional need of every human being. It is the driving force in all beings in all corners of the earth. Connection produces undeniable peace, calm, joy, consciousness, compassion, and a feeling of oneness and wholeness with yourself and with others. It is an action, a verb, not a destination. Connection is the spiritual and emotional confidence that all is well, that all is centered within you. It is the outcome and manifestation of choosing to live an honest, responsible, and humble life. Because of my experiences, I did not realize I had become disconnected by believing the lies of distortion that were all around me. My life, just like many of yours, was full of disappointments, fears, that I was not enough, confusion, feelings of hurt and anger that I did not know how to express, and insecurities that I could not verbalize nor manage. As a result, I accepted the distortion and lies, and the outcome was disconnection, emotional, mental, and spiritual sickness. I did not know that connected people felt differently than I did. I remember being over at my best friend's house when I was a child. I loved spending time with Stacy and her family. I was constantly begging my mom to let me go over to their home because I felt so good over there. They even had an affectionate nickname for me, which made me feel like part of the family. As I look back on it now, I was starving for connection and their family had it. It wasn't that they were perfect and never fought or disagreed. It was that when they did, they were always respectful and kind with each other. When I was in their home, I could feel the connection that I was so hungry for, and I loved it. Though I did not have the words to describe what was happening at the time, I remember feeling seen, cared for, and loved, all of which are components of connection that were missing in my childhood home. There were many times when I would be over playing and her mom would say, "Jodi, it is so good to have you come over and play with Stacy. We love you." Or her mom would simply ask, "Do you girls want anything to eat?" My friend would look over at me for a response. However, I was in so much fear and distortion that I did not dare ask for anything. I couldn't acknowledge my own needs, wants, or desires. My friend would say, "Yeah, Mom, can we have a sandwich?" And her mom would happily reply, "You bet, girls." And off to the kitchen she would go to make it for us. Unbelievable! That was not the world I was living in, and it felt so good. Connection was healing. But yet, knowing this experience, and this is what just gets me, knowing this experience, knowing this feeling and all that, they refuse to offer it to others. Because let me tell you what, the list of stuff she just reeled off talking about, do you feel this way, do you feel that way? Pretend we're watching her do an assessment on Ruby. Let's not even pretend to get into Jodi's issues. Where she's doing an assessment on Ruby. Check every damn last box off. Seeks attention, bing, bing, bing. You know what I'm saying? All these things. So it's like, granted, aside from Jodi needing to utilize Ruby for something, clearly your plan ain't working. You know, it didn't take, okay? So that's my thing, but I'm like, well, if you know that you felt this way, this very specific memory of childhood and this feeling of disconnect, why on earth would you want to be part of making another human being feel that way under the guise of your crazy beliefs, right? It makes no sense to me. Let's continue. Okay, so I remember one hot summer afternoon when Stacy ran into the family room where her father sat. She crawled up on his lap and nestled her face into his neck. He embraced her and stroked her hair and back. My instinct was to feel scared about all that affection being shown in broad daylight. He asked us questions about what we were doing, if we were having fun. She pulled her face away and responded happily, "Yes, we are going swimming now." She jumped off his lap and ran past me, and her father smiled, winked at me, and called out, "Have fun, girls." Those experiences still echo in my mind. I remember how good I felt witnessing them, even as I still felt that I was not part of them. Now I know that although my own trauma impeded my ability to connect, I was still experiencing it vicariously through my friend and her parents. The invitation to connect was extended to me as well, but I was not available to accept it because it confused and scared me, and I did not have the emotional skills to engage with it. I was too busy living in a world of fear, self-neglect, and distortion to be vulnerable. However, I could feel the power of love, truth, and connection inviting me to engage, and it felt safe. Unfortunately, connection was not something I could manage at this time in my life. Let me share another example of me discovering my disconnection. I lived a life where I felt much fear of the time, and through my disconnection, I bought into the distortion lie that I was responsible for other people's feelings. I remember meeting someone and really liking her. Okay, let's just file that away right there. Okay, yeah. She and I appeared to be cut from the same cloth. I felt understood and seen, and so did she. We quickly became friends. I remember feeling scared to share this new relationship with my other friends. I did not want anyone to feel jealous of the time and attention I was spending with her, so I kept her hidden from the rest of my life. I would do things with her on certain days and times that would not conflict with my other relationships, because I truly believed that my friends would be angry at me for replacing them or not loving them as much. The distortion in this thoughts is powerful, yet that is what I honestly believed. I was terrified that my friends would ask where I was during the times I was with her, and I did not want to be placed in a situation where I had to tell them the truth. So I did all in my power to keep the two relationships separate. Okay, now time out. Now it's going to keep going into this story, but just pause for a second. You know how a lot of our theories are that Jodi and Ruby were a little bit more, and that maybe Jodi was like grooming some of these women into the thing? Okay, this is what I read into this. I'm like, you didn't want to tell your friends because you had shame because of your feelings towards this person. Now, granted, this is your typical gaslighting of, well, I'm going to pretend it's like this to make myself look better. I just didn't want my friends to think I ignored them. It wasn't that I wanted to get in her pants. You know what I'm saying? And again, I don't know how old they are in this. It sounds like, I mean, she's definitely like a kid of some point, but remember, I at this point in life consider early 20s to be a kid. I mean, my God. So, you know, there's something here with it. I still stand by. I think Ruby and Jodi probably had a little something going on. I think Ruby is probably a suppressed something or other. And that's where a lot of this venom comes from, because probably just from what I've learned, she could never come out of the closet of some level. And it just reads like that. And so this is very interesting to me. Now let's continue. So one day, what I feared most actually happened. I was talking on the phone with one of my friends, and she asked where I was at a particular time. I immediately knew where I had been, as I was with the other friend I didn't want her to know about. As I paused to think of the answer, I knew I did not want to lie to her because I truly cared about her. Yet I feared she was going to be angry with me. My objective in life was making sure no one was ever upset with me. So the thought of this friend being hurt by me was terrifying. I took a deep breath and told her, I was with a friend of mine and we were hanging out, she said. Who? Because she knew all of my friends. I was choking on saying her name because I did not want to face what was to come. I said her name quickly and then began to explain my choices. I told my friend that I had met her a few weeks back and that we had been doing some things together. I remember closing my eyes waiting for a reaction, knowing her hurt and anger was coming right at me. Instead, I heard my friend say to me in a delighted tone, Jodi, that is awesome that you have another friend that you can go do things with. I'm so happy for you. You need good people in your life, and I'm glad you feel safe with her. What? I thought. No anger, no yelling, no shaming, no tears, no accusations. I immediately began crying on the phone as I confessed the last few weeks of concealing my whereabouts. The gratitude that she expressed for me having another friend in my life and her compassion were amazing to me. I don't know which of us were more shocked at the other person's reaction. We both cried and shared how much the two of us meant to each other. She very thoughtfully modeled connection to me as she reiterated over and over that she loved me and that love didn't diminish if I shared my time with someone else. After I hung up the phone, I could see my disconnection and the distorted thoughts that accompanied it. Okay, pause right there. So remember, you know, this friend was like, thank God, please go hang out with somebody else. She was trying to pawn her off, right? Already at this point. This is what Jodi's running into, people trying to get rid of her. You know, and again, I just don't believe I don't believe most of what Jodi says, nor Ruby at this point. I just think that they are so distorted that you can't trust anything that comes out of their mouth, right? Okay, let's keep going. Connected people ask curious questions about themselves and others and are genuinely validating of self and others through their, please hold, willingness to be vulnerable. People who are connected feel secure inside of themselves, which allows them to take risk and share their feelings with emotional honesty while simultaneously being responsible for their thoughts, feelings, and behaviors. Connected people are described as empathetic, compassionate, boundaried, open, forgiving, committed, validating, respectful, repentant, and vulnerable, all of which keep them safe from the lies of distortion, the counterfeit of truth. The fruits of connection are magnificent and many. They include true love, self-empowerment, intimacy, personal awareness, freedom, peace, and empathy. Now we're going to move into foundational principles of connection. So here we go. To activate connection, you must learn and practice the following principles: impeccable honesty, rigorous personal responsibility, and vulnerable humility. Let's explore each of these principles in more detail. Impeccable honesty. I mean, cannot roll my eyes hard enough. Let's hear what she has to say about that. What I think and what I say are congruent with what I do. I express my emotions, boundaries, and expectations and assert myself by being responsible for my perceptions, emotions, actions, boundaries, and expectations. I do not lie, manipulate, or engage in any form of denial. I do not control anything that is outside my responsibility to control. My thoughts and behaviors are the highest moral standards, and I do not hide, conceal, or keep secrets. Example, I remember a story of a woman who was going through a horrific divorce. Her ex-husband was full of rage and spiteful venom towards her and vowed to make her life as uncomfortable as he possibly could. He went to court and demanded that he have copies of her journals. He knew she was an avid record keeper and he was looking for anything that he could humiliate her or support his case against her. She was devastated. One day as she sat in my office, she received notice that the judge had granted her ex-husband's request and ordered that all of her private thoughts, feelings, and history be turned over to the eyes of the court. She expressed that the worst of it would be that her ex-husband and his vindictive attorney would have access to all of her vulnerable words and emotions. She was in shock. I will never forget witnessing the overwhelming emotions that washed over her as she was coming to terms with the knowledge that everything she thought safely existed on those pages was now going to be aired inside of an unjust and prejudiced courtroom for anyone to hear. She sobbed and wept some more. I watched her heart break as she contemplated the bind she was in, the protection of her journals versus her moral integrity. She had thoughts of hiding them, burning them, giving them to a friend and saying they were lost. Should she be honest and turn her private thoughts over to men who only wanted to ridicule, mock, and smear her name, all in efforts to secure their end result, humiliation? She and I discussed the infringement on her privacy, but also the infringement on her soul and her integrity if she were dishonest with the court. Wasn't she justified in hiding those journals and lying about their physical location? Jodi probably had a hand in getting them turned over, right? I mean, this is like stuff that Jodi does to people, this humiliation. That's what's so funny, to listen to her write about this stuff, and it's like these are ways that she's victimized other people herself. So when she tries to act like she has this like empathetic soul towards these things, I'm like, were you going behind this woman's back and working with her husband's lawyer to get these things exposed? Because that would surprise me less than this. You know what I'm saying? Let's continue. So we went back and forth as she worked out the caliber of her character. After much deliberation, she stated with a powerful voice, "I will not hide. I have nothing to be afraid of. Yes, it will be embarrassing for me to hear my sacred and personal thoughts tossed around in a room full of greed and arrogance, but I will not lose my character or my consciousness or my conscience In the process of losing control over my personal journals, days later she was asked to make copies of every page and turn them over to the court, which she reports she did. Every page, she reported. I cried the entire time I was making the copies, and I continued to reflect on the arrangement I'd made with myself to always live in my integrity. Impeccable honesty was her motive, even in the face of great fear and uncertainty." Again, this whole thing, the name impeccable honesty, things that Jodi and Ruby weren't willing to offer others but want to teach us about and demand and expect of others. Again, it's why when you run into these gurus and people like this that, tout this stuff, it's, are they practicing what they're preaching? You know what I'm saying? Like people who are like so big on, I am this and I am that, or whatever the case is. And oftentimes this is what we see. Now, maybe not to such an extreme case like Jodi and Ruby, like, oh my God, look at the crimes they're committing. But just in general, like think of everyday stuff, like people in your life that like are like, usually most of us know someone like this, right? Think of that person, most of the time they're not willing to walk that walk. They'll talk the talk, but they won't walk the walk. But Lord knows they want you to, right? Okay, so the next section is called rigorous personal responsibility. Let's see what she's got to say about this one. I am thoroughly honest with my own perceptions, feelings, and actions. I consciously make my own choices to be responsible for my thoughts, perceptions, feelings, emotions, and actions, behaviors. I am aware of and willing to accept the outcomes of my choices. Whether they are comfortable or uncomfortable, I take full responsibility and activate the process of repentance when I have, please hold, let me flip the page, violated myself or another. I mean, can we please read this one more time? I take full responsibility and activate the process of repentance when I have violated myself or another. Okay, do we not see that even the judge in court, has she started admitting that it wasn't the kid's fault? This is what blows my mind with this, right? If I am engaged in any form of control, I need to humble myself and acknowledge where I have violated responsibility. I realize that I'm an independent being of integrity. Example. Now buckle up because it's a long one, and please hold. We got the cup out. Please hold. I recall with excitement the day I received my driver's license. I was finally able to go where I wanted to go and had the means to get there. Unfortunately, I also had the bad habit of speeding. My motto was, get as much done as you can as fast as you can. I received my first ticket just days after I received my license. Why doesn't this shock me? Since I understood the nature of choice and outcome and I had a job, I realized that I was responsible for it and paid for my own ticket. As time continued, I did not connect the dots of receiving tickets and driving within the posted speed limit. Imagine that. I know I'm being hypercritical of what she puts in here, but I also feel like she was hypercritical of everyone around her and all these people. So when I'm now scratching beneath the surface and just seeing these things that she's saying, and I'm like, really? Like, you've lived through these things right here, but yet look at what you bestowed upon and expected out of others. Anyways, I justify myself that I was trying to get a lot accomplished. Consequently, I racked up several more speeding tickets. I felt unique and special and told myself that I did not need to drive like everyone else did. This paragraph right here, y'all. This right here, this whole thing, I didn't connect the dots of receiving tickets and driving within the posted speed limits. I justified to myself that I was trying to get a lot accomplished. Consequently, I racked up several more speeding tickets. I felt unique and special and told myself that I did not need to drive like everyone else did. This right here tells you so much about this person. I understand she was a teenager. I get that. However, in this instance, we flash forward to current times and it's like this same thing right here, but in a completely different, more magnified, more severe role of I'm doing this. I'm justified in A, B, and C. You know, we have a means to an end. And if these kids are victims of it, well then, I've got bigger fish to fry. That's the complete vibe. This is so eye-opening. So eye-opening. And drink it from the cuppeth on that one. Drinking from the cuppeth. My God, that one I might have to take me a little 15-minute break on that one now. Lord mercy. On the clock break right there. Come on now. That's major. Okay, let's keep going. One day as I was being pulled over again, I ran smack dab into my consequences. As the officer was issuing me a ticket for speeding, he told me that I had received the maximum amount of points a person my age was allowed. If I received another ticket for any reason, my license would be suspended for 3 months. This meant that I could only be a passenger in the car if I went anywhere. I thanked the officer for the information. He added that I would need to not receive a ticket for a whole year before any of the points would drop off of my record. Then and there, I vowed to not speed again. 8 months and 18 days into my year-long pilot should not speed, I was traveling down the freeway laughing and talking with my girlfriend on the phone when I saw an officer on the other side of the freeway flip around in the median. I panicked. I thought, this is the day I will be suspended. As I looked down and saw I was going 10 miles over the speed limit, and sure enough, I was given a ticket and promised suspension. Oh no, 3 months of no driving. How was I going to do that? As I made plans to accommodate the infraction, I humbled myself and took full responsibility for my choices. I went through a repentance process where I acknowledged all the many times I justified, blamed, resented, and gossiped about the law and how unfair it was. Okay, this is interesting. I felt a softening in my heart towards the intentions of the law. I chose to believe that the law is driven by a desire to keep drivers safe and that I can participate in that outcome as well. 3 months was a long time to not be able to drive, and I learned a lot about how I participated in that outcome. I was willing to accept responsibility for my choices and choose to be humble and change my perceptions, feelings, and behaviors. I appreciate choice and outcomes as it invited me to reflect on the motivations of my choices and assess for truth or distortion. So interesting. Now again, here's the thing too also, and like I said, I know I'm being like hypercritical of this, but it's interesting to go back and read this and then just to see now flash forward where, like I said, a lot of these issues are present. It's not like she changed, right? But also looking at here, this line, I went through a repentance process where I acknowledged all the many times I justified, blamed, resented, gossiped about the law. That's what she's going through right now. Just like she said in the phone calls that we heard of her, she's looking at this as almost like I'm going to repent, I'm going to do this, and then I'm going to come back and teach everybody about it. It's like this, she rinses and repeats this cycle, it seems. Now, I get we're going way back here to like a teenage thing of speeding tickets, but just like that, 8 months and 18 days into it, I was laughing and driving on the freeway. I panicked. I thought, this is the day, 10 miles over, and she got hit. And then maybe she learned, maybe she didn't. I don't know. But I just feel like this is like the precursor for the Jodi that we're seeing now. Definitely she feels entitled. Definitely you can see the undertones of this like absolute delusion of grandeur. Her religious narcissism I mean, all of it, right? It's all here. Okay, let's continue. The next section is called Vulnerable Humility. I am willing to be curious and accept all experiences that are presented in my life. I am willing to be honest and responsible for my perceptions, thoughts, feelings, and actions, and their outcomes. I listen to feedback from others and assess it for truth. With truthful interpretation of the feedback, I will change my thinking and behaviors. I am willing to repent, be responsible for my own expectations, forgive, work hard, keep commitments, make and hold boundaries, and stay vulnerable when reality presents uncomfortable experiences. I do not escape, deny, or hide from reality. I choose to assess for my vulnerability and ask for help when I need it. I choose to be present and move through uncomfortable experiences in honesty and responsibility. Example. Okay. My God. But the examples are what give us insight. If they are true, we don't know how much of this stuff is true, how much of it's made up. After 2 long days of fun in the sun playing in a boat with some girlfriends in a nearby reservoir, my friend Bev received an unexpected phone call she was unprepared to manage, physically or emotionally. We were headed out on a Friday morning for another day of sunbathing, water splashing, and laughter when she answered her husband's call at 10:36 a.m. He shared the news of his father's unexpected death at 4:08 that morning and the oldest brother's unwillingness to share the details of their father's death with their mother. The mother still did not know her husband was dead, and the oldest brother was attempting to control the situation by hiding their father's body and refusing to allow other siblings to see and pay their respects. Bev's husband shared the grim news that weeks before his father's death, the oldest son in the family became the executor, please hold, of his father's will, money, and estate through blackmail. Finally, the oldest brother did not want anyone calling or coming to see him, his mother, or the deceased father. He insisted that he would take care of his father's funeral and inform everyone after the body was interred. As Bev hung up the phone call, she was speechless and in tears. All of us rallied around her and listened intently to the facts as she revealed them. As she concluded, we were all amazed by the dramatic ins and outs of the family soap opera. As she expressed her anger, confusion, and fear and desire to intervene and control, she also realized that she was 2,000 miles away from her ability to do so. The 4 of us talked about the situation as updates from her husband came throughout the day. And as girlfriends, we continually validated our good friend, Bev, as she went over and over the unbelievability of the day's events. She and her husband seemed justified in their desire to fly to their home state, demand to see their father, insist on talking with their mother about their father's death, petition to see his will, and hire an attorney to force their oldest brother to relent. As tears fell throughout the day, Bev was in understandable emotional turmoil. She was experiencing incredible and improbable events, and worst of all, she could not control any of them. Over the course of the next few days, Bev and I talked privately on several occasions. She had not budged from her cycle of fear and control, and the justification that kept it alive. She had 5 days of constant validation and understanding from people who knew and loved her the most, yet she was still hurting as a result of not being willing to humble herself inside this distressing and unsettling experience. In one of our private conversations, I took a stance with her that I'd taken before and knew that she would respond well to. I invited her to humble herself. You might be asking yourself, what in the world does she need to become humble about? This is about the unstable oldest brother, not about her. However, the only person I was concerned about was my friend and how she was stuck inside the lack of humility and unwillingness to vulnerably recognize truth rather than distortion. She needed to become humble in order to exit the painful cycle of control and fear. As I sat with her, I asked, Bev, do you feel entitled to bury your father-in-law's body where you want? Do you feel entitled to his money and estate? Do you feel entitled to force this brother to do what you want because you think you are right? I sat with my friend as I watched her contemplate the questions of entitlement. Almost immediately, she began crying tears of sorrow and remorse. She felt penitent and was curious as to how to make it right. She verbalized her awareness that she had indeed felt entitled to do things her way, and then it wasn't until she heard the word entitled that she jerked awake from the illusion she'd been in for 5 days. She desired to forgive her brother-in-law and surrender all that was not in her control. She made plans to speak with their spouse about having their own service to celebrate his father's life and completely let go of any expectations they had of his brother. Within 10 minutes of Bev grieving, reframing her perceptions in truth rather than distortion, and letting go of what she could not control, she was instantly released from her pain and experienced calm in her mind and soul. She is a woman who typically lives in the space of humility, yet this experience challenged even the best of us, my good friend Bev. So, here's the thing. As I'm reading this section, basically this is what I'm thinking. To each their own. If this is what you need to call things to get through the day, so be it. You know what I mean? This distortion, living in truth, distortion, whatever, again, to each their own. Again, if it's true or not, right? Now this is a very unique situation. We don't know the dynamics of this. We don't know if it's true. We don't know Bev's, his family history and this kind of stuff. I mean, my whole thing is I'm like, and we don't know what that week was like at the beach. Like, was she a train wreck the whole time? Like, what was going on? You know what I'm saying? Please hold. Who knows? I mean, to me, I'm just reading it. I'm like, well, that is a horrible thing. And it kind of, especially as true crime people, I'm like, does anybody get the vibes that he might have offed the father, you know what I'm saying? Or her father-in-law? I would be concerned about this too. But again, it's true. If you can't control something, you can't control it. So the next thing, I don't know if I want to do this. I might find myself up in here to sign up for the damn classes. It's called the Connection Self-Assessment. We're going to take it, okay? How will you know when you're connected? You experience connection when you are... It's another bullet point list. It's probably 2 or 3 pages long. No? Okay, this is not too bad. Okay, here we go. Honest regardless of the outcomes. Experiencing sustained and consistent safety which creates trust. Feeling and acting in love for yourself. My body's starting to reject it. Did y'all just see me yawn? My body's rejecting it. I must be in distortion. Thinking, speaking, and behaving in truth. Honesty, responsibility, and humility. Celebrating and embracing yourself and others for the divine beings that you are. Exercising agency and being responsible for the outcomes of your choices on yourself and others. Creating and holding boundaries while honoring and respecting other boundaries. Experiencing life through vulnerability, which is about fear, distortion, control, or distraction. It continues. Feeling safe and expressing fears, distortions, successes, joys, sorrows, desires, disappointments, hopes, and expectations. Living life with someone and appreciating common experiences. Keeping commitments. Consciously listening to and understanding and empathizing the words and feelings of another, feeling and expressing gratitude for opportunities to experience daily life. So, here we go. It says, as you practice the skill of impeccable honesty, rigorous personal responsibility, and vulnerable humility, you will be truly present in your relationships. You will enter into a new life of awareness, peace, wisdom, freedom, serenity, clarity, vulnerability, calmness, and joy. Learning to live in connection heals the human soul. Connection is always a choice. Being connected is consistently choosing truth, honesty, responsibility, humility, over distortion. Many of us know the story of Viktor Frankl. Viktor, I hope I'm saying the name right. Viktor Frankl was a concentration camp survivor who discovered the importance of perception in many of the experiences he encountered. He was willing to acknowledge that he had the power to perceive whatever he chose, to stay in truth, and continue to move through life without allowing the many brutal attacks he both suffered and witnessed to destroy his sense of peace. Dr. Frankl is an example of choosing to live in truth regardless of temporal experiences. A more current example, and one that gained national and international attention, is the story of Elizabeth Smart. At age 14, she was abducted from her home in Salt Lake City, Utah by Brian David Mitchell and his wife Wanda Barzee, and held captive for 9 months. She was rescued by authorities in Sandy, Utah, and now works as an activist and advocate for missing persons. Elizabeth has written her story in a book entitled Where There's Hope. She shares her healing process and how she has perceived her past in truth and made peace with it. She too has had incredible adversity and, per her report, has had little time in therapy. Yet she has been able to practice principles of truth to reframe her distortions, manage her trauma, and create connection. These two people have publicly shared their painful experiences, and each one has chosen to hold their experiences in truth, captivating a worldwide audience with their stories and of indescribable suffering and the ability to emerge from it. How do they do it? How do they find peace and freedom after soul-wrecking abuses? The answer is connection. Whether your story is one of trauma and distress at the hands of others, or of your own making, whether you've been working with professionals to rid your soul of pain, or if you feel life is going along fairly smoothly and without much drama, all of us are affected by distortion and therefore live with some degree of disconnection. Activating principles of truth will address all forms of pain and disconnection and allow you to have the truths of connection, if you so desire. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to wrap this video up, if you will, this installment, because my body is rejecting this at this point. This has been a minute. What we'll do is, if you follow me for my book readings, what I do is, well, the only major one that I did was Chad Daybell's One Foot in the Grave. And how I did that was I chopped it into several pieces and then like a year later put it all together in one long thing, which is probably what we'll do with this, because it takes me so long to get through these, reading them and do the edit, all that stuff, right? So let's overall talk about it. I am more surprised. I thought that this was going to be more heavy on like the self-help vibe, which it kind of is. But to me, so far, it's reading more like almost like an autobiography of some sort, of her like telling her life through these examples and stuff. Again, it all depends on what's true or not. But definitely the surprise in it is how much insight it is giving us into how her demented mind works, so that we can kind of see, oh, this is why she thinks she's this. This is why she's entitled in this way. I'm not saying it gives her a free pass on it, at all. It makes it honestly worse to me, because I'm like, you've gone this far in life and haven't worked on these issues that you're claiming, were rooted in like, teenage and early 20 years. And here you are doing things 10 times worse. It just shows somebody on a collision crash course of entitlement, narcissism, like all these things. And again, I'm not, nothing fancy, no doctor, no lawyer, no shrink, none of that stuff, right? But it's just these observations of the personality type that, it really makes me question. So that right there is starting to give me a little bit of the, oh, okay, this is a piece of the puzzle of how we arrived where we are today. And it's frightening, to be honest. I mean, honestly, she never needs to see the light of day at all, okay? And I'm not trying to be dramatic or whatever, but I mean, this is a very dangerous person. This train of thought, the way she's thinking, is very unhealthy and has been for years, apparently, the way she thought. Think of the jailhouse phone call she was doing, talking about, I'm gonna, congregate in here, and if I need to go here to, witness, and I mean, this is just her thing, right? It's some kind of, I don't know what's wrong with it, but anyways, let me know what your comments are. Let me know what your thoughts are in the comment section, is what I meant to say. Just wanted to give another shout out and thank you to Helix for all of my wonderful night's sleep that I've been having recently. Be sure and check out all their stuff is down in the description box below to get that 20% off and those free 2 pillows. Roscoe says thank you. He's back there. He was bathing earlier, but now he's sleeping. He says thank you for watching, and if you don't mind, drop some sofas off there down in the comment section so that he and I will have a place to hang out, talk about this case and others. And until we do meander down there and see you in the comment section, we'll see y'all soon. I just wanted to say thank you again for watching the whole video, and also thank you for being part of the Sofa Squad. Special thanks to all the Patreon members, channel members from both of my channels, everybody who likes, shares, subscribes, comments in the comment sections. It helps the channel out so much. Now, don't forget, I do have that other channel, the podcast channel. That's where we go live, we hang out, we talk. We have kind of sort of a schedule, but just be sure and check it out. I'll put it up here on the screen. Also, if you're looking for merch, be sure to check out my Teespring store. I'll put that up here. And then, like I said in the beginning of the video, if you want to follow me and Roscoe on the Instagram, go on, check it out. It's right here on the screen again. But once again, thank you very much. I really appreciate you being part of the Sofa Squad, and I'll see you in the next video.